Getting the software job is just half of the battle, but the next part of the battle is making sure that we find a company and we can have an enjoyable career. So in this video, I'm going to explain what you should do to maximize your software career. The first thing is negotiate your salary before being hired. I have been guilty of this in the past of not negotiating enough before I got hired and ended up doing some damage to me in the end. I just didn't like talking about money, especially with not having a degree. I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome and I felt like I would offend somebody if I was to ask for a higher salary for the position. But that's not the case. We get paid for what we're going to be doing in the job, not for if we have a degree or not. This negotiation is even more important these days because I've been noticing that more companies are asking way earlier on in the process, what do you want to get paid? Before, it was kind of a topic that people didn't really want to touch. You could go through 2 and 3 rounds of interviews before anybody talked about a salary, but companies are really getting ahead of that now. So they may ask you what you want to get paid in your very first phone call with the recruiter. So you have to be ready. I've made a mistake plenty of times of being caught off guard and giving a number that wasn't as accurate. And once you give this number, it's very hard to get away from this number, especially if you're on the lower end. They obviously want to pay as low as they can to get a good candidate, and we want to get paid as much as we can to work for a good company. So if you start low, it's very hard. And a lot of these recruiters, they are very aggressive when they try to get a number from you because they want to know from the beginning if it's worth pursuing you or not. The strategy of saying, you know, well, I want to get more information on the position so I can have an accurate idea of what to ask for. Even that doesn't work sometimes these days. So by me not giving a higher range when I would get asked this question, I ended up working my first few years in software being pretty underpaid compared to other developers with the same amount of experience that I had in similar positions. So don't think that you offend somebody if you do ask for a certain salary, because hiring somebody is a transaction and you only get one chance to try to start off at the highest salary that you can. Another thing is to make sure that you keep in contact with your previous coworkers if you change jobs. I'm really bad at this. In general, I'm really bad at keeping in contact with people. I have a very close-knit circle of people that I keep in contact with regularly, and outside of that, it's like I'm in my own world and I forget to talk to a lot of people. But not keeping in touch with previous coworkers can put you at a disadvantage when you start to try to look at other jobs. Sometimes even now, I'll reach out to previous coworkers who are now my friends and I'll get a sense on the job market. You know, what have they seen in the job market? Have they moved to a different job? And just try to get a sense on what's going on outside of just me. It's also good if you need some type of reference, or even if you have technical questions. It's good to keep in contact with people because you can help each other. It's just crazy to me sometimes that I could work with somebody Monday through Friday, go to lunch with them, and this could go on for years. And as soon as one of us change jobs, it's like we don't even remember each other anymore. So we all have to do better with that, because being in this field, we have to support each other and we have to help each other, no matter how hard it is or how much of an introvert you are. Another thing is, if you find a good company, do your best to enjoy it as much as you can, because you never know what could happen. And this is a very personal one to me, because when I first started in my career, it took me a few jobs to where I finally thought, like, man, I could be here for a while. Like, I really enjoy working at this place. And looking back on it, I didn't value it enough because I had the perception that this was just going to last forever, and it didn't. So this particular company, I had always heard about how great they treated their employees. If you could get a job there, that you probably wouldn't leave. So I applied over the years and never got anything, but then a position popped up that pretty much matched perfectly of my experiences at the time. So I applied. Within a few days, I got a phone call from the recruiter. After I got done talking with the recruiter, she mentioned that she would talk to the team. If they wanted to reach back out to me for a second interview, then they would. So with my luck, they did contact me a few days later and ended up speaking with my manager, or my would-be manager at the time. And this conversation ended up being a lot more technical than I anticipated. I did really well at it, and I started to get, pretty excited that I might have a chance to move forward in this company. So then the next step, the recruiter reaches out to me again and she asked me if I was interested in going on site in person to meet the development team and to meet some other managers for different teams. And of course, I'm thinking sure, and I'm thinking that they had an office that was local to me, but they didn't. This office was in South Florida. So they paid for my flight, they paid for a rental car, and they paid for a hotel for me to go down and see this campus and talk to these other managers and the development team. Now, if you've gone through any process like this before, then you know that if a company is spending this kind of money to get somebody to come in for an interview, the only thing you have to do is just don't mess it up. They are not going to spend that kind of money for somebody that they don't see any potential of. So I go through the interview process and they ended up offering me the position. I got the position, and this was the best company I have ever worked for in my entire life. I mean, even the onboarding process was crazy. Like I mentioned, the office was in Florida, but once a month they had an onboarding event for all new employees that were hired in that month. And it didn't matter where you were hired hired from, virtually or in person, they will fly you into Florida and you will spend the weekend and get to know the CEO, you would get to know other executives, you would get to know the history of the company. I mean, it was amazing. Everything was completely paid for. So obviously the office environment was also really good. Food all the time. I mean, I started gaining weight from working there. You know, game room, different events for different holidays. It was a fun place. So fun that they even had an event for the entire development team to go to Disney and Universal. And I mean the entire development team. It was so many people in Florida for this event. If you were virtual or if you were in person, if you were in India and you were part of the development team, they would fly you in. The day before we went to the amusement park, they had this big party where they rented out this huge building, music and food and all kinds of entertainment. I had never witnessed anything like this in my life. It almost felt like a dream. And unfortunately, it was a dream because that was my first year of working there. And after that year, the company got bought out by a private equity, which 9 times out of 10 is never good for any private company, at least for the employees. I started seeing a lot of the executives start to retire or move on to different companies, and the culture started to change a lot. Then not soon after that, right before the pandemic started, they merged with another company, and after that, it was never the same. And sometimes I just think back and just wish I would have valued it a lot more and really appreciated everything that was going on, because that was not normal. And there's a lot of companies that don't treat their employees as good. So if you do find a company that treats you well, take advantage of it and value it, because you never know what could happen in the future. The next thing is physical health. I take my physical health pretty seriously, and I think it's really important in this field because of how much time we're sitting down and we're staring at a screen. If you take a software engineer who sits down all day and looking at a screen compared to someone who's a construction worker that might not be getting paid as much, but they're physical and they're active all day long, who do you think is going to be healthier in the long term? So it's not always about the money. Yes, it is cool that, you know, we get paid a good amount in this field, but we have to take care of our physical health, because if we don't, we can get older up in age and you can have all the money you want, but if you don't have good health, it doesn't mean anything at all. I know developers that are my age that have hip pain and knee pains and things like that, and it's really easy to get into that type of mentality because you're sitting down and you're trying to think. You start snacking and you start munching and you forget to even get up sometimes, or you forget to move around, and it can really start having a bad impact on your body over time. So that's why I try to stay as consistent as I can by working out. I have to get up early in the morning, make sure I get my workout in so I can be active at some point during the day, because I know most of the day I'm sitting down and I'm on the computer. Now I know everybody's not into lifting weights and going to the gym, but just do something, whether that be even just going to walk or yoga, Pilates, boxing, whatever it is that you like. Just do something throughout the week and your body will thank you for it in the long term, because there's no point in having money and you can't even enjoy it. So that's what I have for you in this video. If you like the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this.